there's a lot of NASA images out there that people say are airbrushed, and this is a good example. And this is from Spirit Rover, and you can see there's this big area here in the image that seems like it kind of doesn't belong. And there are giveaways, and the first giveaway is shadow. This has been quite badly done. So you can see the shadows on these rocks are this side, they're pointing towards us, and they're reasonably long. They're about as long as the rocks at all, whereas the shadow on this supposed dune is on the right side, but the shadow doesn't seem to be pointing towards us. The shadow seems wrong. And what's this? Now this side is actually coming towards us, yet it's not in shadow. Very strange. Yet on these dunes here, which are in the same direction as that dune over there, you can see that the shadow is on our side. So these dunes have not been airbrushed in, whereas this big area over here has been airbrushed in to conceal something or other. And it's just not been very well done, probably because it's been done in a rush, because they've only got a few hours to get these images out to us before their clock runs out. Now here's another reason why it's rubbish, because if you look at this other dune over here, which is even further in the background, you can see that there are details on this dune. There's actually a variation in colour level on this dune, whereas on the dune we're looking at that's been airbrushed in, you can see that it's completely plain. There's no variation of colour in it whatsoever, and the whole thing just looks rubbish. And now this is quite a large panorama shot that they've done this with. If I go back to its actual size, here we go, and you can see this kind of area we're looking at is over here, which is, you look at the rest of it and there's a suspicious lack of detail in that area there. So how easy would this be to do? The answer is quite easy, and I'm going to import an image and airbrush something over, and I'm going to import an image from NASA. I'm going to bring it into GIMP, which is a free paint program. I'm not even going to use Photoshop. I'm going to do a job that's similar to the one that you've just seen, and I'm going to do a better job as well, just to prove I can. So I hope you find this interesting. Off we go. Now I've been to the NASA website and I've got this image, and I have to say that this image has already been airbrushed. It's very difficult actually to find one which hasn't. And you can see the airbrushing when you're zoomed right out on the image like this. Yeah, it's this continuous area over here which kind of looks the same and has some rather suspiciously square edges. So let's have a look and see what I mean. Well, look at this. It's a different colour from all the sands that are around it, but it's the same colour as the sand that's in the foreground here. And all they've done is just use the clone tool from Photoshop or similar to add this bit at the end. And there it is. There is the airbrush portion dropped in, and you can see that that's real sand. This, however, has been added. The scale of the ripples are all wrong, And oh look, whoops, what's this? We've got a square bit that doesn't actually follow the landscape. And this is typical of NASA's rubbish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to airbrush something on here. I'm going to put something on here and then airbrush it. Let's find a area like this where I can actually put something on there to hide. And what am I going to put on there? Well, I'm going to put on there a pyramid. In fact, this is the Great Pyramid. And what I want to do first is cut it out. I'm not going to do a terrific job on here because I'm only going to airbrush it over. It's only going to be a placeholder to say, look, here's the thing that could have been there, and they've airbrushed it out. I'm not actually saying that I think that there are pyramids exactly like this on Mars, although there are plenty of people who do. So we'll just cut that out of here, paste it as a new layer, I'm going to get rid of that layer in a minute. Right, let's get rid of that layer. There we go. Right, now let's go to this place where we're going to put this thing, and what I'm going to do is, just to be consistent, the shadows on here are going which way? Shadows on here are coming towards us, so I'm going to darken this whole colour down. Oops. I want to make sure that this is actually my current layer. Then I can play with the colours. I want to darken it down, I want to grey it out. Gosh, doesn't that now look familiar? Doesn't that now look like the surface of Mars? And the next thing I want to do is I want to rotate it to match the rotation of the landscape. Or do I? Is the landscape actually rotated with this pic? Yes, it is. Okay, so we'll rotate it. And let's rotate it so it matches the image. And we'll scale it to make it a little bit smaller. Something like that maybe. And we'll move it around. We'll scale it down a bit more actually. Just to make it look reasonable. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to erase bits of it to make sure that it looks like it was actually on the surface somewhere. Behind these rocks over here maybe. The easy way to do this is actually to make it transparent. And I will make this layer somewhat transparent so we can see through it. And that makes it easy for me to rub out the bits. That I don't want. Now I can see where these rocks are underneath, and I can carry on erasing away to make it look like it's a part of the landscape. And then if I restore the opacity of that layer, and we get something like that, which is just a few minutes work, and it's kind of reasonable. Okay, I've got a bit of sky blue over there. So if you're NASA, how would you go about erasing this? So it's quite easy. Image, and I'm going to merge all the visible layers. Well, actually I might as well just flatten it, and you can see that it's quite convincing. Even as it is, just for a couple of seconds work, I could do a lot better job on that using slightly different techniques, but I'm not going to. So here we have a doctored image, which could have existed before NASA airbrushed something out. We don't know. So how are we going to actually remove this? Well, the first thing we can see is that obviously there's a line there. So we want to select the portion that we're going to airbrush out. So we're going to replace this bit in the background here with something convincing. Excuse me. Still got this slight cold that I've had for a while, and I'm going to start off with that bit because it's all the same, and all I've done there is I've just selected a piece to actually I shouldn't have done that first. Just realised that. First thing I want to do is select a bit of this, a weird irregular shape piece of this, and the reason why it becomes obvious when I go to the airbrush tool, if I edit, copy that piece, you'll see when I look at my brush options I've got that piece as an option to use, and I can change its size to roughly match what I've copied. There we go. And now I want to do my selection and I'm going to draw in there using the airbrush tool. As you can see, that isn't yet totally convincing, but if I go to the brush tool and use this as a stamp, suddenly I can match that up with that bit. Suddenly it becomes much more convincing. So that's that bit. Now the next bit we want to do is something related to these highlands here, and I just want to pull out again a reasonably irregular lump of those highlands, and now I'm going to replace this top portion of our pyramid here. I'm not going to bother with the airbrush this time. Oops, I forgot to do something there. What I forgot to do is to copy it, because until I copy it, it won't appear as a usable brush. Sorry about this, ladies and gents. This is due to my incompetence. This is taking a bit longer than I would like, but there we go. I'm going to drop the size of it. So you can see I've got rid of practically all of that pyramid. And there's still a little bit visible, but we'll sort that out in a minute. The next thing I want to do is get rid of this bottom bit here, and the way I'll do that is by selecting some of this area around here, edit copy so we can use it as a brush. Time I am going to go into the airbrush. I'm going to increase the size again because this brush is actually quite big. We want the size of the details to be roughly the same as they should be. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to airbrush it over to get a consistent colour. Then I'm going to go back into paint, and this is the bit that NASA don't seem to bother to do. And I'm going to reduce the size a bit so that it looks different. Now I want to zoom in, and I want to get rid of any mysterious artifacts around the edges. And the first thing to do is to deselect everything. You can see that's already reasonably convincing, but it's not good enough for me. So, view. I'm going to go for a 2:1 view. And we'll see that I've got some bits around here which are maybe not so good, so we'll go into the smudge tool. I don't want any longer that brush there. Don't want it anywhere near as big as that. And what I could do is just copy a bit, of course. I can reduce the opacity. And I could do a much better job of this than I am. But this is just quickly showing you how easy it is for NASA to do what they're doing. Just join that bit up with there. What I'm doing is I'm getting rid of all the peculiar areas that are kind of pyramid shaped, because I've done it up to a line. And this smudging here is typical of what you will see on NASA images that have been airbrushed. I don't like these bits down here, so I'm actually going to get rid of them. I'm going to take an area like that, copy into my airbrush. I'm going to go back to using the selected area as a tool, change the size a little bit. That's good. And I want to select the area now that I'm going to play with, which is this area here. And let's airbrush. Into there. And we'll reduce our size. And suddenly it doesn't look quite so pop the size up a bit again. And we kind of got rid of our pyramid, and one of the other things we might want to do is put some darker rocks in along this peak, as there are here. So we'll come down to here, and let's select some of these darker rocks along the top here. Bear in mind, this is another bit NASA probably wouldn't be bothered to do. Turn off my selection. Let's change the size a bit. I think that will probably do. And this is just to show you how easy it is to use a modern image editor to make things disappear. And now there is no pyramid there. And for first glance it looks quite good. It certainly looks better than this piece of rubbish here. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and you found it quite interesting, and you can see that within certainly 20 minutes NASA could do a good job. They've probably taken about 10 minutes over this by the looks of it. And what is it they're hiding underneath there? Who knows? Who knows? But it's one of the most obvious pieces of airbrushing that I've ever seen on a NASA image. Well, please like, share and subscribe if you found this interesting, and I'll see you all soon.
Well, you could subscribe to Arduinotronic, or just go jump in a lake.